I can remember my mother saying things like, well, you know, in very serious tone, you know, you're getting ready to go to school with white people. So you're going to have to not do this and not do that. You know, and I just kept saying to myself, well, what is this thing called white people? What is that all about? You know, and she did. I mean, there were certain things, well, you know, we're going to have to think about what we're going to put in the lunch bag, because, you know, you'll be at school with white people. And you got to be sure that you got to be, you know, everything's got to be pressed and clean and, you know, right on top, because, you know, you're going to school with white people.
That goes back to the thing that we were taught all our lives, that we've got to be at least 2 steps ahead in order to be twice as good in order to be half as what white people were. And that was taught in our home.
Well, for me, because I went to integrated schools all the way through college, and I think that some of the advantage was that when I got into the world of work and interacted with people of different races, you know, it was almost like it wasn't quite as, I don't think it was quite as shocked as I might have been if I hadn't had that experience younger with being in an integrated environment.
The answer is that both things prepared me well, because Hampton and the segregated elementary school prepared me to do better and always to try to be the best. Whereas when I went to the white schools, it also prepared me to be how to understand and what to expect from white people, how to interact with them. So I think I got both things were needed. I really do.
During 1960 and prior to 1960, Brookland Park Boulevard was a line of demarcation between black and white.
Right.
So that block busting started happening right after Chandler became desegregated. And what that was that as blacks began to move into a neighborhood, white real estate agents would find ways to scare people into moving out of the neighborhood, saying that if they would leave now, they'd get a better price for their house. And then you could begin to see as whites left as part of white flight.
Right.
Okay, because typically they would wind up moving to North Henrico or maybe East Henrico if they were going to move out of the city altogether. And there was an intimidation factor for people. In fact, in some of my research, I found that someone's car brake cables got cut in the white community right across from Chandler because they were not supporting the fierce line that people were having about keeping Chandler as a white school. So I'm really touched by your story with what you're sharing, because it adds context to what was going on in a variety of places in Richmond. The neighborhood was in transition, and it was in transition because of white flight. And frankly, some of the black real estate agents were colluding and working with white real estate agents as a part of that, you know, which was really interesting. You know, if you can get them out of the home, then I'll sell it so we can both win, because they were thinking the green dollar. I just thought that might help to bring context, because a lot of times we talk about gentrification, and we also talk about diversifying the neighborhood, when particularly during that time, it was very clear that this was about pushing whites out because the neighborhood was starting to turn black. And part of that was not just pushing them out, but that was the fear factor that many whites had about their property values going lower. And that was one of the arguments that that people whites who did not want Chandler to become a desegregated school had, because property values were going to go down if people were next to blacks, and they could begin to see the push from Brookland Park Boulevard.
We moved in probably about 66. My mother and father, my father passed, my mother sold me the house when I got married, and I brought my 2 children up in that house, because I went to Stewart, Chandler, John Marshall, and my children followed right behind me. At that time, citywide, you could choose any school you wanted to go to, but then they changed that. And then so, in my neighborhood, it was mixed all the time, but when they started busing, that's when the white flight really happened as far as my concern. John Marshall was, we had probably had just as many white people as black people going there. But when that busing started, I mean, they moved out big time. In the house that I live in now, we had whites beside us, we had whites across the street, but once we moved on that corner, the people next door moved, and then so black moved in, they moved, and so that kind of started to change reaction. But it really kicked in when the busing started. There was a lot of opportunities for me, you know, because when I went to John Marshall, that's really how I got in it. And I'm a retired elevator. I retired in 2008, but I got into the elevator trade. Whereas when we were going to John Marshall, we still had a few white people still going to John Marshall. I graduated in the class of 73, should have been 72, because I wanted to hang around. I didn't have one class, and that was DE, and I could have easily graduated, but we used to go to school and shoot crap, you know, it's like, I wanted to stay in school. So anyway, they had an assembly for all, they stated all black males. Then they had to change it to say all males, because it was one thing that they hadn't too long built the tech. And see, young black men we were kind of behind on looking at the building trades. We were all college. So we had some black technicians wanted to come and have assembly to open some of the young black men eyes up to the building trades. And so when I graduated, I went to first class at J. Sergeant Reynolds on Pine Road.
I moved with my grandmother on Hunt Avenue, Providence Park, in 1967. In this neighborhood, and it has changed some, but I still can remember going with friends over in Highland Park and being chased back across Byron Street Bridge. You know, you didn't go across Byron Street Bridge in certain pockets of North Side and Highland Park that you did not go. We did not come to Brookland Park Boulevard. You know, we were told we couldn't come down there. The only thing that we ever frequented on Brookland Park that I can remember as a kid was the ice cream. But we were told, you know, you don't go to Brookland Park. They kept us at church in the NAACP meetings. You know, Miles Jones was my pastor at Providence Park Baptist Church, who was an educator himself. So we were there to supplement a lot of the things that we didn't get in schools and in the community. So we always, and I still to this day, lean towards my elders, because this is where I learned to be who I am. You know, the kids that I grew up with, they were cool, but I'm a history buff, so I always wanted to know what I didn't know. And just to be here with y'all today, I'm still learning things.
I was the generation that was bused, and we didn't have all of the community feeling that you all talk about. We knew our next door neighbors, but that was it. We rode the bus. I was bused to Mary Mumford. My sister was bused to Elizabeth Red, and my brother, I can't even remember the school. So the 3 of us went to 3 different schools. So when we came home from school, we were latchkey kids. So we didn't play with other kids in the neighborhood. So that disruption, started, with my generation, and it sounds like it definitely continued, and being the decline of this community. And then we moved out to Eastern Lyco, which wasn't any better, because that's where it was predominantly white, and we would get the blatant racist treatment. So I just wanted to share that really quickly.